decades, one story has circulated through the darker edges of UFO lore with an unusual level of detail. An alleged agreement between the United States government and extraterrestrial beings, followed by a mission that supposedly sent American personnel to another world. It's a story of official contact with something otherworldly. There are no classified documents to support this, yet the narrative persists because of how completely it imagines the impossible. This is Project Serpo. In Project Serpo lore, the alien civilization at the center of the exchange was known as the Ebens. They are described not as invaders or monsters, but as non-human inhabitants to a world in which the American team were allegedly sent. In Serpo lore, the planet itself is presented as a slow instrument of attrition. It is described as a world under two suns, where the light never feels natural and the heat never fully loosens its grip. The exchange team is said to have endured constant glare, severe heat, chronic dehydration, skin blistering, and progressive eye damage, all under the pressure of radiation levels their bodies were never built to tolerate. The ground is usually described as dry, dusty, and exposed, with thin vegetation, little shelter, and long open stretches that turned even routine movement into a drain on strength. Rather than confronting one dramatic danger, the team was allegedly worn down by an environment in which basically every condition, light, air, temperature, and exposure, worked against human endurance, leaving the mission defined as much by physical decline as by the contact itself. What the Americans allegedly did on Serpo was less a triumphant exploration than a prolonged study carried out inside these punishing conditions. They were said to document Eben settlements, language, food cultivation, transport, work structures, child rearing, and daily routines, while also keeping records on their own bodily deterioration as the mission progressed. Some versions claim they observed a society organized around collective labor, rigid order, and highly regular patterns of life, with little privacy and few of the emotional or cultural signals humans rely on to feel at ease. They reportedly studied local flora, fauna, weather cycles, and social customs, but the exchange was never portrayed as comfortable or reciprocal in any human sense. In other tellings, the team came to understand that they were not simply learning about an alien world, they were also being watched, measured, and quietly absorbed into a system they could observe in detail, but never truly belong to. According to the most widely circulated version of the story, everything began in the aftermath of the Roswell incident in the late 1940s. In this account, one extraterrestrial being survived when their spacecraft crash-landed in the Roswell desert and was taken into American custody, not as a prisoner in the ordinary sense, but as a source of contact. The being was allegedly able to communicate with its home world, and over time, a channel was established between human authorities and the civilization it came from. What followed if the story is to be believed, was not panic or open conflict, but the gradual construction of a relationship hidden entirely from the public. The alien home world was said to be a planet in the Zeta Reticuli system, sometimes called Serpo, though even the name shifts across different versions of the story. After years of contact, arrangements were supposedly made for a human team to travel there as part of an exchange program. The mission, as described in the lore, involved 12 American military personnel selected for the journey. Unlike anything in recorded history, the task was not to combat or reconnaissance in the conventional sense, but observation, adaptation, and direct contact with non-human civilization under tightly controlled conditions. The journey itself is described in logistical terms that give the story much of its eerie force. The team was said to have departed in the mid-1960s and travelled for months before reaching the alien world. Once there, they encountered an environment harsh enough to reshape the entire mission. Twin suns, extreme radiation exposure, and living conditions that placed constant strain on the human body. In some tellings, one member died en route, another died on the planet, and others returned physically altered by the exposure. In other versions, the numbers change, but the core image remains the same: a group of Americans crossing into the alien landscape and discovering that survival there came at a cost. By the end of the assignment, some versions claim most of the team returned. Others insist that a few remained behind, either by choice or because returning no longer made sense to them. Most extraterrestrial narratives depend on sudden appearances or abductions or fleeting encounters. Serpo replaces all of that with diplomacy, endurance, and long-term exposure. The unsettling question is no longer whether something visited Earth, but whether contact moved beyond observation into relationship, one hidden so completely that the public would only ever encounter it as a rumor. In that sense, the story functions as a fantasy of secret access, but also as a nightmare of exclusion, history proceeding in private while everyone else is left with fragments. What endures above all is the shape of the silence around it. The story has no stable source, no clean archive, and no conclusion capable of closing it. Instead, it survives in the gaps between disinformation, belief, and the human need to imagine what the universe may already have answered us somewhere behind closed doors. Whether Serpo is fabrication, contamination, or something more obscure, it remains dark for the same reason all effective conspiracies do. It describes a world in which the most important event in human history has already happened, and nothing was ever said. That concludes this entry, but every shadow leads to another trace, and every trace to another unanswered question. If you want the next case as soon as it resurfaces, please stay with us. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and step back into the dark with Noctombre.